I don't know that anybody has been more important in my life than Stephen King. So I got really like freaked out. And then I started to think that I needed to write a story that would like symbolically honor King in this way. And I came up with this idea that wasn't that great. And I didn't like it that much, but it was all I had. And I hadn't started writing it yet. But this was before Brian had told us, because he just asked us first. We didn't really get the guidelines. He hadn't told us that we weren't supposed to feature Stu Redman, Larry Underwood, Franny, all those characters. And so in my story, Stu was going to appear at the end in a pretty important way, because Stu Redman was always my favorite character in The Stand.
Yeah.
And Brian, after a couple weeks, called me and he said, okay, so here are the guidelines. And he gave me that guideline. And my first response was to kind of like, I didn't tell him this, but I kind of freaked out because I'm like, the only idea I had kind of featured Stu Redman in the end. And so that idea, as woeful as it was, is now out the window. But I was like, nodding on the phone. I'm like, oh, sure, that's great, Brian. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I got off the phone and I'm like, oh man, the only idea, even though it sucked, is now has to be jettisoned. But what it did was it liberated me, because I never liked the idea that much all along. And so like an hour later, a new idea started to form, and it was 1,000 times better. And I ended up, by the end of that day, I had the idea. And I was so thankful that Brian had called to tell me no Stu Redman, because that's what helped me get rid of that crappy idea and come up with an infinitely better idea.